Shango, mojuba ile Shango, maniwalo, eri jaja, orishapa, eromale, Shango, mojuba ile, waloba kuso. Amabu Shango, yeah. 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 Abajagba ebi oba kuso. 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 Abajagba ebi oba
Blessings, greetings, 10-9 Mwadi. Be thankful unto the Most High, Mother, Father, Creator of the universe. Kuzaimu Mukulu, give praises unto our great ancestors. African power for all African people. Just want to make sure that I can be heard, yeah? So if you can hear my voice, yeah, just give me a signal in the chat. Just give me a little signal. Let me know that you can hear me so I can see where I go on. Be back to Ultra Funky inside the building. And whoever else is listening. But yeah, I just want to make sure that I can be heard first and foremost and that my sound is good. So let me know you can hear me. Okay, cool. And there's no interference, distortion, you know what I'm saying, echo. None of them something there. We don't want none of them something there tonight, this evening. Okay? All right, family. Give thanks for tuning in still. Man appreciates the thing. I do want to begin though by you know, first of all, as I've opened in, you know, giving praises unto the creative forces in the universe and the ancestors, sending a shout out to all those who, through whatever reasoning, yeah, are going through difficulties and hardship at the moment, yeah, whether that be in terms of bereavement or financials. I want to send a special shout out though to the brothers, the families of the brothers who have been recently slain in police custody, yeah, or at the hands of the police. It's you know, what they call extrajudiciary killings, yeah. It's a very, very serious thing. It's a very, very, very serious situation as it stands at the moment. And one we know was killed by just a group of Europeans, yeah, you know, whilst jogging, yeah. And another brother today was killed by the police, yeah. I made to understand he goes by the name of George Floyd. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a very serious situation. And I have to open like that because we have to acknowledge Wagwan in the world, even though that's not really our subject today, kings and queens. Yeah. So, you know, give thanks for you joining us for this presentation. And once again, love to the families of the brothers who have been slain at the hands of European racists, whether they be in uniform or out of uniform. And we hope that our people gather the collective mental, physical, and spiritual strength, yeah, to make such occurrences, you know, null and void. Yeah, we have to really neutralize the capacity of the forces of wickedness in this world, yeah, in their attempt, you know, to aggress us as a people. And I just have to say that, yeah, because that's very important. All right. Okay, family. As we get into the conversation today, I'm gonna speak for about an hour and a half, and then we're gonna open up for discussion. So feel free to come join me after I've finished if you got a question or a comment, yeah, inquiry, or even a challenge, yeah, family. Everything is welcome. Last time when I dropped this on content over everything, people were asking me if I have a PayPal. Yeah, in the description to this video you will find a PayPal link. So feel free to utilize that PayPal should the spirit move you and you want to contribute to the works that I are bringing forth. Yeah, feel free to do so. You know what I'm saying? And much appreciation in advance to everyone who chooses that option. Yeah, there's a couple more things I just want to say before I get into it. Hit the like button. That's it. Hit the like button. If you're listening for the first time or you're not subscribed to Shaka Ra Speaks, then feel free to subscribe to Shaka Ra Speaks. Okay, family. Big up everything is everything in the building. And yeah, share the link, family. If you got anybody that you feel might be interested in this presentation called Kimoyo, Why I Choose African Spirituality Part 1, in which we're going to define African spirituality. Okay, so today, presentation is going to be focused on defining African spirituality. Okay, and we're going to be doing a 4-week series. Next week will be focused on explaining and delving deep into concepts of the entity or being or force in the universe that is generally speaking referred to as God. Following that, we're going to be delving deep into an understanding of the purpose for ancestor veneration, the philosophy behind ancestor veneration. And then finally, we're going to be dealing with rituals, the self, and nationhood. Yeah, rituals, the self, and nationhood. The dates for each respective presentation are every Wednesday from now over the next 4 weeks. So that's the 3rd of June, the 10th of June, and the 17th of June. Once again, who or what is God? Ancestors and the forces of nature. Ritual, the self, and nationhood. Yeah, every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks from 7 p.m. GMT. That's 2 p.m. EST, and the rest of in any other time zones can figure out Wagwan fit on yourself. Okay, all right. Give thanks, kings and queens. I'm gonna get into it right about now, and just block this presentation nice and big. Yeah. Now there's gonna be. I can also see the chat, yeah? So let me know at any point if there's an audio issue. Yeah, I'm going to be playing a couple audios and let me know if there's any audio issues, all right? Okay, so this is Kimoyo, part 1, Why I Choose African Spirituality, where we're going to be defining African spirituality, okay? Next week, I'm going to go into a proper definition of this term, Kimoyo. But for now, just understand that it means African spirituality or African religion. All right? Okay, let's go. First and foremost, want to send a special shout out. Oh, hold on. This don't seem to be demonstrating. All right. Okay. So 1 second, Kings and Queens. Let me sort something out with my screen share at the moment. Because it's not quite functioning in the way that it should be. So give me a sec. Give me a sec, Kings and Queens. All right. Remove that one there. Okay. Here we go. This should do it. Yeah. All right. Also, if there's any issues hearing, sorry, what viewing, yeah, anything on the screen, let me know and we'll deal with that also. Okay. Let's go. So I want to 1 second. Sorry. All right, cool. I want to begin by dedicating, livicating this presentation to my auntie who recently passed, Auntie Nkechi Ode. She was a member of the organization, is a member of the organization that I was born and raised in. And she passed away in March, and we buried her just under 2 weeks ago now. And I want to tribute this message to her because of the support that she gave me personally in works such as these. We shared a lot in terms of our passion for greater definition and scientific appreciation of African spirituality and African spiritual systems. And so, you know, because of the support that she gave me in these particular endeavors, this presentation is dedicated to Auntie Nkechi. And we give thanks for all the works that she was able to complete on this plane of existence, and understand that as an ancestor, she will continue to provide support, and we give thanks. Yeah, Tenda Mwani. Having said that, family, I want to just introduce you to my foundation, which is the Al-Kebulan Revivalist Movement, of which I'm a member. My father is the spiritual leader of the Al-Kebulan Revivalist Movement. And this is just giving you my own background and some of what qualifies me to be speaking on such a subject this evening. All right. So I hope everybody follows me so far. We're going to move relatively quickly, but not as quickly as we are moving on Content Over Everything. And by the way, big up Content Over Everything, because the first time I delivered this presentation was on Content Over Everything last week, and I got a lot of good responses, but people wanted me to go in a little bit more. And so what we're going to do right now is basically go in and break down stuff, go a little bit slower, or quite significantly slower in fact, and go in. All right. So the Al-Kebulan Revivalist Movement was founded in 1987. I was the first of its children to have been initiated into manhood, and that's the image that you see here. Is a picture taken at my manhood initiation ceremony, Kings and Queens. Yeah, my manhood initiation ceremony. As you can see, I'm surrounded by men with a very, very big red, black, green flag in the background, and that is important because we're emphasizing the fact that African spirituality is historical, it is contemporary, it is futuristic, it is economic, it is also revolutionary and political, Kings and Queens. Okay, and the red, black, and green flag was designated as the flag of the African nation in the making 100 years ago in 1920, in the month of Messiah or August. This flag, red, black, and green, was heralded as the flag of Africa, a liberated Africa, and African people, by a convention which was entitled the International Convention of the Negro, quote unquote, peoples of the world. Yeah, at which over 25,000 people gathered in Madison Square Garden, and it said that over 100,000 people made up the parade. Yeah, that followed the convention. And the convention went on for 31 days. 25,000 people is no mean feat in 1920, especially because that 25,000 people was made up of Africans from around the world. Literally all four corners of the earth, Africans traveled and sent delegations to Madison Square Gardens. And so that's how you get the RBG flag. Yeah, along with a number of other great achievements which I will go into on this particular channel later on in the year. Yeah, but obviously this is here because it's symbolic of an African spiritualist ceremony, and we're going to be explaining the significance of this in a future presentation in this series. However, this is my foundation, just so you know. So to give a bit of an explanation now as to the Al-Kebala Revivalist movement, this is my father, yeah, the only remaining founding father of the Al-Kebala Revivalist movement and its current spiritual leader. He goes by the name of Brother Leader Mbandaka. Okay, and much of what the Al-Kebala Revivalist movement is has been shaped by the vision of Brother Leader Mbandaka, and we're going to go into explaining what that is at the moment. First of all, let me just say big up to my brother Abiola Soul over there in France. Thank you for joining me, my brother. I am very humbled by your presence. And shout out to the Pan-African Congress movement. On the second day of Africa Liberation Day, Brother Abiola delivered a fantastic and amazing solidarity message. So check out PACM TV if you want to see that speech, Kings and Queens. Very, very purposeful. We're going to get Brother Abiola on Shakara Speaks once again very soon. All right. Okay, so explanation. The Al-Kebala Revivalist movement is a liberation movement based upon an African-centered spiritual cultural philosophy called Al-Kebala Liberty and the nationalist Pan-African philosophy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and the eminent prophet and king Omowale Malcolm X. What we're emphasizing here, yeah, quite basically, is that we are merging a definitive spiritual and cultural inclination with a definitive political inclination. The Al-Kebala Revivalist movement is about the understanding that spirituality and culture is political and that politics should be derived from, based upon and inspired by your own indigenous and autonomous spirituality and culture. Yeah, and so we emphasize these two things. Okay, politically speaking, as adherent to the legacies of great men such as the eminent Omowale Malcolm X and the most eminent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. All right. And you know, when I was putting together the presentation, I was actually debating whether to put this first or last at this section. So in order to explain the reasoning, in order to explain the process of reasoning that brings into being an idea called African spirituality, and then explain how that, you know, evolves into an organization. But I thought, no, let me give you the foundation first, and then, you know what I'm saying, explain the reasoning. Big up to National Racialism, big up to Witness Ekason. Thank you very much for joining, man. Big up to Caleb inside the building. Okay, all right. 3 core concepts, yeah, of Al-Kebala Liberty. So this is going to explain what Al-Kebala Liberty means. All right, the 3 core concepts, yeah. First and foremost, what it doesn't explain is that Al-Kebalan is one of the oldest names on historical records for the African continent. The founding mothers and fathers of the Al-Kebalan Revivalist movement felt it was important to name the movement off of a title, yeah, that would or could give expression to our continent and culture, our people, pre-enslavement, pre-invasion, pre-conquest, yeah. And so through the inspiration of particularly Baba Yusuf Ben Yochanan, we learn of this word Al-Kebalan. I say we, the founding mothers and fathers in 1987 learned of this term Al-Kebalan and put it forward as symbolic, yeah, of our people pre-conquest, pre-invasion, pre-enslavement, and therefore free and determining. Okay, so Al-Kebalan in that sense gives expression to that a liberated African consciousness, and is also aspirational in terms of our desire to return forward, yeah, to that liberated African consciousness. Liberty combines 2 words, living and divine, yeah, and that is explained in the 3 core concepts thusly. Living, Al-Kebala Liberty, is a life-sustaining, life-enhancing philosophy encompassing the 360 degrees of the African life cycle from the womb to the tomb and beyond. And that is to say that our culture informs the 360 degrees of our life, yeah. In the third The fourth presentation, I'm going to go into that a little bit more, so I'm not going to deal with it right about now, okay? However, the second core concept is divine. Al-Kebla Liberty is a Mwari stroke God-centered philosophy and faith, guiding us in the true African-centered knowledge and understanding of Mwari, creation, humanity, morality, and the destiny of the human soul, okay? Stay tuned for the third presentation where we'll go into that a little bit more. And finally, mother culture. And this part is the part that is pertinent to today's presentation. Okay. Mother culture means the culture of Africa, our motherland, as manifested in the teachings and traditions of Muzimu Mukulu, our great ancestors. By the way, Muzimu Mukulu and a lot of the words that you see here that are not English are spoken in the Shona language of Zimbabwe. And the founding mothers and fathers, among them was a Shona speaking brother. So he was teaching the rest of the members Shona. And that's how Shona becomes the spiritual language of the Al-Kebla Revivalist movement. As a mother gives birth to her offspring, so has Mama Africa given birth to all African people. As the nature and personality of a mother is coded in the genes and psyche of her children, so is the nature and culture of Mama Africa coded in the genes and psyche of all Africans. Thus, our bond with Mama Africa is natural, inseparable, and eternal. Yeah? So we're dealing with this concept of mother culture, which is our original culture. And by this, we do not mean anything that is stuck in the past and unprogressive from day one, unevolving from day one. It just simply means mother culture is where we derive our cue, where we derive our inspiration, and where we evolve from as a people, as all peoples do. And later on, we're going to get into that a little piece more. Governing principles, Al-Kebla Liberty is nature-based, based upon the laws of nature. Al-Kebla Liberty is African-centered, and meaning centered around and steeped within authentic African spiritual values and traditions, and importantly, Al-Kebla Liberty is a cultural synthesis, meaning Al-Kebla Liberty is a synthesis of all the authentic teachings and traditions of Mama Africa. It recognizes the single essence which underlies the various the variations in African cultural practices. It thus acknowledges that the source of such variations is one, that the culture is one, and that the destiny of our people is one. Al-Kebla Liberty therefore seeks to reunite our people within a common universal order of faith, values, and spiritual cultural traditions. I know that sounds like a lot of philosophical, highfalutin stuff right now, kings and queens. But we're going to validate that in our piece, because that's the whole point of today. And we're going to be specifically dealing with the idea of cultural synthesis, okay? So, defining African spirituality. First and foremost, let's get a word from our great and illustrious Mama Marimba Ani on this matter and why it's important for us to define African spirituality. All right? Let me know if there's any problems hearing this in the chat.
African spiritual thought in its own terms. Okay. Many of us are practicing other religions because we need something. That's a human need. That's an African need. And we're doing this because no one has ever presented African religion to us in terms of the underlying philosophy that the religion is based on. That is, no coherent statement has been made to us about African religion, and it hasn't been explained in terms of the African worldview. Usually it's explained with reference to somebody else's worldview. So I want to attempt to correct that this evening, and then we can get hopefully into questions.
So Mama Marimba Ani is a cultural scientist, and what she's explaining here, is that 9 times out of 10, when we're approaching the situation of African spirituality, we are not approaching it with an understanding of the philosophy that underpins, the spiritual tradition. All kinds of additions and perspectives are imposed upon African spiritual traditions, and therefore African spiritual traditions are seen from that perspective. Sometimes you will get an understanding of African spiritual system that focuses purely on particular rituals that are either done or said to be done, because sometimes not everything that they say is done is actually done. Okay, and you look at the spiritual system from that perspective, but no religion, quote unquote, no philosophy, no spiritual idea or body of ideas can be properly assessed without an understanding of the philosophical basis at the center, at the basis of it. Yeah, so the whole point of this series is to give an understanding, or help to give an understanding of the philosophical basis and underpinnings behind below African spiritual systems. Okay, and I hope that is making sense to everybody thus far. So definition wise, now I always like to begin by giving definitions of words. Defining spirituality, as we was taught in the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist movement growing up, spirituality is a way of life steeped in reverence to a divine creation and divine inner cultivation. Yeah, two key components there: reverence to the creation and reverence to the divine within the self, and dedication to cultivating the inner self, which is essentially the consciousness and the character. Okay, spirituality is the center and foundation of African culture, the core of African consciousness, and thus the essence of the African personality. What this means is that when you look at African cultures throughout the length and breadth of our indigenous nations, wherever we are in the world, at the center, yes, of our culture is a spiritual understanding of the universe and of the self. Yes, and we are going to substantiate that today. But what Brother Leader Bandaka, in typing this up, is emphasizing is the centrality of spirituality to African culture. Okay, and we're going to emphasize that. Defining African, we have to define African. Why do we have to define African? Because it name African spirituality. Okay, so we put an emphasis on the African. Why? Because African simply means relating to people of African descent. Yeah, so when we put all of that together, kings and queens, we're dealing with a way of life steeped in reverence to a divine creation and divine inner cultivation as expressed through African culture. Yes, this is important because we're emphasizing the fact that African spirituality is at the same time political and cultural. It is political and cultural. We emphasize the African because we are particularizing how Africans express spirituality, how Africans conceive spirituality. And this is important because historically speaking, the African expressions of spiritual consciousness have been demonized, have been negated, have been subjugated, have been condemned. And Africans, as a result of such condemnation, have been indoctrinated into schools of thought that cause us to turn around and condemn our own expressions, condemn our own ancestors. And so people ask, well, why is it not just spirituality? Why is it African spirituality? Because we understand this. Well, before we get to that, sorry, I'm going to come back to that in a second. I misplaced where I was in the presentation. In defining culture, we're going to play on the wisdom of our great and illustrious Mama Marimba Ani once again. In the book Urugu, she says, Wade Nobles defines culture as a process which gives people a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. Its aspects, he says, are ideology, ethos, and worldview. Its factors are ontology, cosmology, and axiology. Its manifestations consist of behavior, values, and attitudes. Well, let's define the big one them in that definition right there. First and foremost, ontology, the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, a set of concepts and categories in a subject area or domain that shows their properties and the relations between them. Essentially here, kings and queens, ontology simply deals with the nature of being, how we view ourselves and each other. Yes. Then we get to cosmology, the science of the origin and development of the universe. Modern cosmology is dominated by the Big Bang Theory, which brings together observational astronomy and particle physics. Cosmology is about how we understand the nature of the universe and ourselves within that universe. So ontology specifically in this sense places us in the universe and allows us to define ourselves within that universal cosmological whole. And finally, we have axiology. Axiology is the study of the nature of value and valuation and the kinds of things that are valuable. One of the central questions in axiology is this: what elements can contribute to the intrinsic value of a state of affairs? Yeah, the key word obviously here is value. So the understanding is that from ontology and from cosmology, people develop ideas and ideals, principles and values that inform a culture. Yes, so your idea of yourself and your ideas associated with the cosmos will give birth to values, and those values will inform a system of values which will develop into a culture. All right, hope that is making sense so far. Continuing to define culture. Sorry, now that I've explained, let me just go back a second and remind us that culture is a process which gives people a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. Okay, all right, so that was just a reminder of that before we go forward. What does culture do for a people? It acts to unify and to order experience so its members perceive organization, consistency, and system. In this respect, it provides a world view that offers up orienting conceptions of reality. It gives people group identification as it builds on shared historical experience, creating a sense of collective cultural identity. It tells its members what to do, thereby creating a voice of prescriptive authority to its members. Culture represents values which they themselves have created together out of shared experiences as a systematic set of ideas and a single coherent statement. Yeah, culture, essentially, kings and queens, is a way of life. All right, culture, it provides the basis for commitment, priority, and choice, thereby imparting direction and group development and behavior. Indeed, it acts to limit the parameters of change and to pattern the behavior of its members. In this way, culture helps to initiate and authorize its own creation. Okay, what the culture that you identify with is the culture that you are committed to developing and evolving, either wittingly or unwittingly, either consciously or unconsciously. It provides for the creation of shared symbols and meanings. It is therefore the primary creative force of collective consciousness. Bear that in mind. Culture is the primary creative force of collective consciousness. It is that which makes it possible to construct a national consciousness. Yeah. And finally, for all of the above reasons, it impacts on the definition of group interest and is, Mama Marimba Ali says, potentially political. And as always, I'm going to revise the use of the term with, I know, the understanding and blessing of Mama Marimba Ani, and say culture is always political. There is no such thing as an apolitical culture and no such thing as an acultural politic. Okay, we're just defining culture and we're going to move on. I hope everyone is with me. If you miss anything here, feel free to note it down and come back to me in the Q&A. So, what is religion? We go to the great and illustrious Baba Yusuf Ben Yakana for a definition. He says, religion is the deification of a people's culture. Therefore, religion empowers the people in whose culture the religion is expressed. In other words, deification seeks to elevating into the realm of the deity, elevating into the realm of the divine. So when you take your culture, you see the best of yourself in yourself, you elevate that to the realm of divinity, and that becomes religion. Yeah? Therefore, all religions come out of cultures. There are no cultures. There are no religions that do not come out of cultures. There are no religions that are acultural in their origin. There are no religions that exist beyond the realm and the veil of culture. Even if the religion claims to be universal, it is born out of a culture. And so by implication, the religion always empowers the people within whose culture the religion is expressed. Explain this further. We're going to go to a man who is one of the unsung heroes of our African world history, but a very important one from what I have been able to learn of him. He goes by the name of Okot Patek, yeah? And he wrote a book called Africa's Cultural Revolution. He's a cultural artist. He's known for writing plays and poems. And these kinds of things, but he's really an African-centered cultural scientist, yeah? And he says the religion of a people is perhaps the most important aspect of their culture. Why? I'll explain it in a sec. What they believe governs their lives. It provides their world view, the general direction along which they live their lives and relate to each other and the universe. It guides them in their conduct of war and peace. It is the basis of their behavior towards one another. The knowledge of the religions of our people is the key to the knowledge of our culture. So if religion is the deification of a people's culture, in a people's religion and their spirituality is where they preserve the best of themselves. When it comes to axiology, the primary values of the people are going to be found in the so-called religion, because axiology is about value, and the highest value is going to be deified. Deification of a people's culture. You elevate your highest value. Okay? So what Baba Patek is saying here is that we must, in order to understand ourselves as African people, we have to look into the spiritual traditions of our ancestors, because that is where we are going to learn our ontology, our understanding of our nature of being. We're going to learn our cosmology, our understanding of the nature of the universe. We're going to learn our axiology, our understanding of our highest values, our principles and values. Okay? I'm going very slow at the moment, kings and queens. I hope you're all staying with me and following very, very well. We're going to explain this a little bit further right now. Yeah? And in terms of dealing with the issue of culture, the man that you see in the center here is a great African by the name of Amilcar Cabral. He is a revolutionary ancestor, and he is instrumental in the liberation movement in a nation called Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. He is surrounded by the women of his army in this image, and he delivered a speech in the early 1970s called National, Culture and National Revolution or something like that. I'm forgetting the title of the speech, you know. Forgive me, brothers and sisters, yeah? I will, in fact, I can get it right here. One second, sorry. I happen to have the book on hand. The actual specifics of the title have just slipped me. I apologize. National Liberation and Culture. Yeah, National Liberation and Culture. He says, when Goebbels, the brain behind Nazi propaganda, heard culture being discussed, he brought his revolver. That shows that the Nazis, who were and are the most tragic expression of imperialism and of its thirst for domination, if they were all degenerates like Hitler, had a clear idea of the value of culture as a factor of resistance to foreign domination. History teaches us that in certain circumstances, it is very easy for the foreigner to impose his domination on a people. But it also teaches us that whatever may be the material aspects of this domination, it can be maintained only by the permanent, organized repression of the cultural life of the people concerned. Implantation of foreign domination can be assured definitively only by physical liquidation of a significant part of the dominated population. In fact, to take up arms to dominate a people is, above all, to take up arms to destroy or at least neutralize, to paralyze its cultural life. For as long as there continues to exist a part of these people retaining their own cultural life, foreign domination cannot be sure of its perpetuation. At any moment, depending on internal and external factors determining the evolution of the society in question, cultural resistance, indestructible, may take on new forms, political, economic, armed, in order to fully contest foreign domination. I hope that speaks for itself, yeah? But I do encourage ones and ones to Google the speech Amilcar Cabral, National Liberation and Culture. It is one of the most comprehensive, yeah, documents of the importance of culture that I've ever come across and read. But we get to the point that if religion is a deification of a people's culture, yeah, and culture, yeah, is really about the people's productive capacity. And when you want to oppress a people, you are in fact attempting to neutralize or paralyze their cultural life. Then we understand the importance of us as African people understanding about African culture and spirituality. You don't understand about African culture without understanding about African spirituality, and you don't understand about African spirituality without understanding about African culture. So within the Ad Kemelan Revivalist movement, we are taught that culture, we break down culture into two component parts. One are cultural values, which are the essential principles of a people's culture. In other words, the things a people value the most. And these cultural values are expressed through cultural mediums. Cultural mediums are the mediums through which culture is expressed: language, names, foods, garments, ceremonies, rituals, customs and traditions, family and social structures, music, dance, art, craft, architecture, sports, games, recreation, agriculture. These are all expressions of culture. You put those two together and what you get is social order, yes, which is solidified in institutions of the culture. Okay, to explain this further, our great and illustrious ancestor, Mama Frances Cress Welsing, gives us the 9 areas of people activity, which are education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war or counter war. Yeah, all of these areas of people activity are informed by culture, the values, principles of a culture. Okay, and these areas of people activity are the areas in which cultures are institutionalized. They're given structure, they're given form. All right, but it's a symbiotic relationship because the institutionalization of a culture also reinforces the values of the culture. Okay, something is stuck here, kings and queens. My computer appears to have stuck. Let me know if you can still hear me, please. Let me know if you can still hear me. Just so I can give me a signal if you can still hear me, family. I just need to sort this computer out right about now because it seems to be going on with some nonsense, yeah, before we can go ahead any further. Apologies for this. Thank you for everyone that is watching right about now. We give thanks. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. By the way, when I first did this on Content Over Everything, I was asked if I had a PayPal. If you want to contribute to my PayPal right about now, it's currently in the chat. Yeah, you can check it out in the chat. Sorry, not in the chat, in the description to the video. You can find my PayPal. Yeah, so if you want to contribute to the works that I'm presenting for the next 4 weeks, then feel free to do so, but do not feel obliged. Okay, kings and queens. All right, so I'm trying to sort out this thing, and it doesn't seem to want to be giving me any joy at the moment. So give me a second, but I hope ones and ones understand where I'm going with this. We're just explaining what religion and culture is at the moment, piece by piece, so we develop an understanding of defining African spirituality in accordance with African culture. Okay, right. Come on. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, we're getting there, kings and queens. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, bear with me. And apologies for the little technical itches and glitches, but you know how the technology go and all these things. All right. So while this thing reloads up, yeah, let me know. Let me check out the chat. Shakira is giving you examples of what now. Oh, so there's an argument going on, I'm assuming. Let me see what I'm going in the chat. Before, okay, so there's a Islam thing going on. Right. Okay. Well, today we're discussing African spirituality. I'll give thanks, good show as always. What are your thoughts on race classification? Are Somalis black? Okay. Big up to Afrifrinka in the building. Tendamwari, greetings to you, my brother. At what point do we get to answer questions? Soon, King. Yeah. Where are we now? We're at. So let's say I'm gonna do another 45 minutes, ish, and then we'll get into some questions. Okay. Right. We're here. 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 Okay, let me get to here. I'm gonna move a little bit quicker now, kings and queens. Okay, all right. So we're back. Right. So I'm gonna skip this slide. No, I'm not gonna skip this slide. Right. Mama Marimba Ali says, anthropologists, through their use and abuse of the culture concept, have generally ignored the political implications of culture by de-emphasizing its ideological function. Through this conventional use of the culture concept, these societies have been theoretically and superficially abstracted from political context in which they exist. What do I mean by that? Yeah, what do I mean by that? As I explained before, social order is informed by the institutionalization of the cultural values and cultural mediums of a people. What happens is with African culture, yes, we get rid of the social order and the institutions. We do away with the cultural values and we focus exclusively on the cultural mediums. This is what happens with African culture. So when we talk about African culture, what we get is we talk about language, we talk about names. Olufemi, yes, and Nyambura, yeah, and Zinzile, yeah. We talk about jollof rice and sadza, yeah, and eba and egusi. We talk about agbada, yeah, and Ankara. We talk maybe about naming ceremonies and outdoorings, yeah. If we talk about rituals, we talk about them quietly because the rituals are heathen and pagan and kufar and shirk, yeah. We talk about customs and traditions, maybe. We talk about art, we talk about music, we talk about Afrobeat, yeah, and Zouk, yeah, and Kweto, yeah. But we don't talk about principles and values that inform institutions of economics and politics and labor and sex and war and counter war. Yeah. And so what happens is African culture gets reduced, yeah, to an apolitical and dysfunctional group of expressions that are not born of a cultural value system. And what happens is that allows other people to impose their cultural value system upon African culture. So we will use African cultural expressions to give expression to European or non-African cultural values. That's what takes place. Yeah, it's why we have to define African spirituality and culture. Now, I don't know why we're here again. Forgive me for this duplicated slide, kings and queens, but we're going to go forward. I was explaining how it reinforces the culture is the cultural institutions reinforce, yeah, the culture itself. All right, these two books by Sheikh Anta Diop, The Cultural Unity of Black Africa, Domains of Matriarchy and of Patriarchy in Classical Antiquity, and Black Africa, The Economic and Cultural Basis for a Federated State, give expression to the idea that there is cultural unity in Black Africa. Yes, we are not making this up. And this is important because of the concept. Somebody already is out there saying, listening to me right now, is saying, how can you have African spirituality? There are so many cultures on the African continent. There is not one culture. Africa is not a monolith. I agree. Africa is not a monolith. There is great variety. There is great variety of form built upon a unified essence, a common cultural, philosophical foundation, a common ontology, cosmology, and axiology that gives birth to a variety of forms of expression. Yeah. And in the book, The Cultural Unity of Black Africa, Baba Sheikh Anta Diop delves into an explanation of that from an ontological and axiological perspective, looking at the idea of matriarchy, or what those of us in the African-centered community prefer to refer to as matrifocality. Yes, or mother-centered, mother-focused traditions, yeah, and how the mother-focused traditions of original Black Africa informed our social organization and the principles and values that gave rise to matrifocal societies. The other book looks at, once we've substantiated that Black Africa has cultural unity, how can we develop on that Black African cultural unity in practical ways that allow us to develop shared, unified political institutions? That's what the economic and cultural basis for a federated state is about. Okay, all right. A quote taken from this book right here: a consideration of pre-colonial African family, that of the state, the accompanying philosophical and moral concepts, and the like, reveals a consistent cultural unity resulting from similar adaptations to the same material and physical conditions. So going forward, we're just going to focus on this in relation to common features of African spirituality. In other words, I'm going to give expression to what Baba Sheikh Anta Diop has just said by looking at some of the common philosophical concepts within African spiritual systems. I hope you are all with me. All right, we're going to begin with the great and beautiful work of my brother and my sister Dalian and Verona Spence Adofo, from the team that brought you Ancestral Voices as a film and book series. And they identify 5 main parameters within which African spirituality can be defined as a unified expression of various different, a unified manifestation of various different expressions. Yeah. 1 is a shared understanding of the Supreme Creator. The 2nd is a shared understanding of nature and natural forces. 3 is a shared understanding of the importance of ancestorhood and relating to ancestorhood. 4 is a shared expression of rituals, in particular in invocationary practices. And 5 is a shared understanding of the divine purpose of human beings. In these 5 domains, the team at Ancestral Voices, in their illustrious work, around and across the African diaspora have explained that in these 5 areas, Africans share cultural unity. I encourage you to check out ancestralvoices.co.uk and get both DVDs and the book for more information. But we're going to touch on some of the illustrious research today in this presentation. In the book, Person, Divinity and Nature, a modern view of the person and the cosmos in African thought, by an Igbo brother called Chukwunyere Kamalu, he identifies a number of concepts that are found across different African spiritual traditions. He says the destiny or spirit double, variously known as Ka in ancient Egypt, Chi among the Igbo of Nigeria, Ori, Yoruba of Nigeria, Kla, Asante of Ghana, Kla, the Ga of Ghana, Ehi, Benin of Nigeria, Se, Fon of Benin, Ido, Kuba of Zaire, etc. The concept of the spiritual double is so called because in many African cultures, this self is thought to have 2 parts or aspects, one residing in the person's body, while simultaneously the other resides in the heavens. In the 4th presentation in our series, we're going to delve into these concepts a little bit more. The point here, however, is just to emphasize the fact that these same concepts can be found in a variety of African spiritual traditions. Continuing from the same book, the soul or breath, variously known as Ba, ancient Egyptian, Emi, Yoruba, aspects of the Obi, the Chi in Igbo, Se in the Fon, Nshanga, the Bambala, Mofufu, yeah, or Mopufu in Kuba, Kra, Ashanti, etc. This aspect of the person is the individual's life force or animating principle. Yeah. The soul or breath. Sorry, the duplication there. The heart, variously known as the Ib or the Ab in ancient Kemet or Egypt, the Obi, Igbo, Emi, Yoruba, etc. This will appear to be the aspect of the person which thinks and feels. Yeah, so we're just looking at shared common concepts within African spiritual systems. Okay. Ancestral guardian, variously represented as an aspect of the Ba in ancient Kemet, the Mogia Ntoro in the Asante, the Ori of the Yoruba, the Eke of the Ogbo, the Joto of the Fon, the Ehi of the Beni, etc. This aspect of the person in African thought represents the part of the individual which is inherited through a transmission from generation to generation. The shadow, variously known as the Shayit or the Shayet, or the Shoyet in ancient Egyptian, the Ojiji of the Yoruba, the Onyinyo of the Igbo, the Lume of the Bambala, the Edidingi, of the Kuba, the Ye of the Fon, and the Igikuku of the Banrawanda. This, etc., this aspect of the physical body, which is not just an ordinary shadow cast by sunlight. Once again, we're going to get into that a little bit more in the 4th presentation. So just hold that for now. Just understand that this concept can be found in various different African spiritual traditions. Moving on to this great work called the Encyclopedia of African Religion, put together by Baba Malefiketi Asante and Mama Mambo Ama Mazama. Given that we viewed African religion as one religion, and the continent as a whole, we were inclined to introduce classical African religious ideas from the beginning of Kemet to the arrival of Christianity and later Islam in Africa as significant forerunners to much of the continental African thought. The same appeal to ethics based upon righteous character, the same search for eternal life found in living a life where good outweighs evil, and the same openness to ancestral spirits, cause as remaining among the community of the living creates an appreciation of the recurring cycle of humanity. Yeah, she again there. This, by the way, this is in the introduction to the encyclopedia, which was written by Mambo Ama Mazama. Yeah. Correspondences of languages and the concept of concept, as with Amen, Amani, and Imani, which are transgenerational and transcontinental, remain vibrant parts of the African legacy of religion. When the Akan use the words Kwame, Asade, and Nkwa, they recall the more ancient Amen, Asa, and Ankh. Several books start with the older works of Eva Meyerowitz, starting with the older works of Eva Meyerowitz, have examined these correspondences. Of course, in more recent times, Afrocentric authors such as Mubabinge Bilolo, Chinwezu, and Theophile Obenga have identified other correspondences in the religious and philosophical traditions of Africa. African religion dramatizes its unity in the universal appeal to the spirits that animate all of nature. Humans, stones, trees, animals, lakes, rivers, and mountains are conjoined in one grand movement towards the continuation of life. However, the entries that are included in our encyclopedia have convinced us that the ideas of reciprocity, circularity, and continuity of the human community are essential elements in the discourse on African religion. At the core of this continuity is the belief that ancestors remain active in the community of the living. Almost all other actions on earth are dependent upon the eternal community that encompasses the unborn, the living, and the deceased. Yeah, so I'm emphasizing here these elements of reciprocity, circularity, and continuity of the human community. What they're saying is that in their studies, and this encyclopedia includes entries from all over Africa and the diaspora, African communities, wherever we have held onto our indigenous spiritual systems, these elements of reciprocity, circularity, and continuity of the human community are ubiquitous and abundant. And this is substantiated through the entries in the encyclopedia, which is 2 volumes of hundreds of pages, kings and queens. All right. We continue. The Encyclopedia of African Religion articulates a philosophical approach to this topic that situates African transcendent expressions in a unitary sense. Fractured by numerous cultural and spiritual intrusions, African religion has withstood the worst of human brutality and cruelty against other humans with solemn resilience. There are some beliefs and aspects of life and knowledge that are consistent across the continent. For example, human beings oriented on the African continent, on the continent of Africa, and the earliest human consciousness towards, I misspoke. For example, human beings originated on the continent of Africa, and the earliest human consciousness towards the awesomeness of nature and the mysteries of life and death was an African experience. In Africa, the world exists as a place full of energy, dynamism, and life. And the holding back of chaos by harmonizing the spirit world is the principal task of the human being in keeping with nature. Once again, in Africa, the world exists as a place full of energy, dynamism, and life. And the holding back of chaos by harmonizing the spirit world is the principal task of the human being in keeping with nature. in the African world, spirit exists. This is not a debatable issue in most African societies. And I have not come across an African society in which it is debatable, to be honest with you, indigenously speaking. The existence of spirits that are employed in the maintenance of balance and harmony represents the continuous search for equilibrium. All right. Explain this a little bit further, and we'll soon wrap up and open up for question and answer and comments. With due consideration for variety and variation. By the way, this is taken from the book called Anthropological Prisms, Studies on African Realities by Elder Baba Kwesi Pra, who is a linguist and a so-called anthropologist. And he is from Ghana, but he now lives in the nation of South Africa. Okay, he says in this book, with due consideration for variety and variation, it is possible to identify two principal features of traditional African religious life which promoted ethnic integration. Notice the use of that terminology, ethnic integration. In other words, as far as his understanding goes, there are two principal features that promote the cultural unity of African people. Firstly, the series or catalogue of seasonal and repetitive festivals associated with material production and social reproduction. And secondly, traditions of ancestor veneration, so common amongst African people. So once again, ancestor veneration is common across African cultures. And he's saying a catalogue of repetitive seasonal festivals associated with material production and social reproduction. What does he mean? What is he referring to? Well, in Africa, in African cultures, there are a number of what is called harvest or first fruits or even yam festivals, And here you see a list, Ancient Kemet, you have the Pert en Min, which is a ceremony that was centered around the divinity of Min, which is a divinity of, and that's an ancient divinity of associated with agriculture, with fertility, and so on and so forth. You have Nkwala in its various manifestations in southern Africa. You have Nkosi among the Zulu, the Luma among the Tonga, Tegula. I believe that's pronounced Afashe. I always forget how to pronounce the HY consonants together. But I believe it's hair or something like that, in tree, okay. The Odwira of the Ashanti, the Eje of the Yoruba, the Olo Olofin of the Yoruba. These are all harvest ceremonies, I could add the Iriji of the Igbo, the Homowo of the Ga, the Akwasidaye of the Akan, you could add to these, all right. And these are all harvest ceremonies. That's what Baba Kwesi Pra means by material production, And in rural or agricultural societies, the primary material production is harvest, is food to feed the nation, okay. But as a part of the ceremony, and I've been to a number of these. I've been to Homowa, I've been to Akwasidaye. I was supposed to get to Iriji, but when I got there, it was jam and they wasn't allowing anybody else in. And these things. But and I've been to reproductions of ancient Kemetu ceremonies, harvest ceremonies as well. And when within the ceremony, it is not uncommon for a particular aspect, of the people's history to be dramatized. This is what he means when he speaks about material production, and social reproduction. Social reproduction is basically tying to certain principles and values that are born out of an understanding of the people's history. Okay, so he's saying that this is ubiquitous, within African spiritual traditions. Okay, and that ubiquity, to coin a phrase if that's not a word in the English language, promotes what he refers to as ethnic integration, that we prefer to call cultural unity. So there is just cause to use the terminology African spirituality. Okay? And this is not purely a continental manifestation. Yeah? This concept of African spirituality and African cultural unity is in some ways given even greater expression in the African diaspora. Why? Taken from the book History of Religions in the Caribbean by Dale Bisnoff, and a scholar from the nation of Guyana. Indigenous African religious ideas, however, did survive the difficulties of estate life. Yeah, we're just detailing now how African spiritual traditions survived enslavement. Okay, this testified to the vitality. Note the use of that word vitality. Let's note it in your consciousness. Okay, of those beliefs and and to the reality of the Weltanschauung, which is a German word which means worldview. Yeah, the world picture. Yeah, which those beliefs provided for the Africans in their homeland. Yeah, so he's saying that the vitality of the fact that we preserved our traditions in the Americas whilst going through such an horrific and horrendous experience is a testament to the vitality, yes, the dynamism, the way in which our traditions permeated every aspect of our lives coming from our homeland. In the Caribbean, however, African religious ideas were to undergo significant changes, but they remained recognizably African in structure. Two factors were primarily responsible for these changes. In the first place, African religious ideas were capable of modification in response to new circumstances of estate life. Secondly, the practice of African religion was frowned upon by the estate authorities. This meant that the religion could only be practiced clandestinely and irregularly. The result was that some aspects of African religious practices withered away. He continues, given the massive difficulties which the practice of African religion faced in the Caribbean, it must surely be one of the most remarkable things in the religion's history that so many aspects of that religion survived. One such aspect was the African belief in the existence of an almighty God. The people of West Africa, from among whom the slaves were recruited, knew this deity by several names. The Akan-speaking Ashanti, Fanti, and Brong peoples knew him as Nyame or Nyankopon. The Yorubas of the Lower Niger, Central Dahomey, and Togoland called him Oludumare or Olunu. The Ewe-speaking Fon of Abome and Alada, sometimes pronounced Arada with the R, of Porto Novo, the Get Togo and Ga of the Gold Coast called him Mawu or Mawulisa or Mawulisa Sebo. The Igbo called him, to the Igbo, he was Chuku. Yeah. Now, these are all names of the supreme creative life force that survived the enslavement process to varying different degrees. And I say to varying different degrees because there are times where, for example, you might find, like in the 1600s, you might find records of these names in the Americas, but they may not all have survived in name in like up until the 1800s, and there are reasons for that, which we'll go into. By the way, next week we're going to be going into concepts of the supreme creator. Yeah. So, and I have an issue with the word God, and we're going to explain that next week. Yeah. But so we're not going to go into that today. Yeah. But when we say God here, it's purely for communication purposes, and we're talking about the supreme creator. Okay. Despite the attitude of the plantocracy to African religious practices in the Caribbean and the formal legislation against such practices, the worship of African divinities survived. So divinities now are distinct from God, yeah, the supreme creator. Divinities are the forces of nature. In Guyana, Komfo, i.e. Akomfo is a name for the priestly order in the Akan spiritual tradition, which is known as Akom. Yes? Dancing, with its emphasis on spirit possession, has had a long tradition in Trinidad. The worship of Shango, Ogun, Eshu, and other recognizable African spirits survived. In Saint Domingo, Haiti, the worship of African divinities was to combine with that of the Roman Catholic saints. Meanwhile, it was noted by Brian Edwards that the Chromantins, i.e. Ashantis, in the 18th century Jamaica worshipped Asasi, which is Asaseya, which is the earth divinity, the earth, Mother Earth, yeah, in the Akom traditional system. The bush Negroes, quote unquote, of Suriname worship gods whom they associated with the woods and rivers in the manner of their African forefathers. The Kele ceremony, as well as the Katumba dance, which survived in St. Lucia, undoubtedly had its origin in the worship of African divinities. In the French islands in the 18th century, the belief in water mother, Mami Wata, existed as it did in the Dutch colony of Suriname. In Spanish Cuba of the second half of the 19th century, the Lukumi Negroes worshipped the recognizably Yoruba gods Obatala, Shango, Elegua, and Ogun. Some features of Lukumi worship resembled those of the Akan worship of Obosom, also pronounced Abosom. In Akan worship, a brass pan was usually regarded as the localized dwelling place of the Obosom. On solemn occasions, the pan was filled with medicinal herbs and various sacred objects. The god was summoned to take up his residence in the pan by sounding of bells and by a ceremonial dance in which priestesses and worshippers participated. What I'm emphasizing here is that the first sentence. In Cuba, the Lukumi tradition had a lot of the Lukumi tradition, had a lot of shared features with the Akan spiritual system. Lukumi being derived from the Ifa or the Isese, spiritual system of the Yoruba, and the Akom tradition, or the Komfa tradition being derived from the Akan tradition, okay? But there's similarities there, and so they were able to share in their ritual practices, which is what Ancestral Voices were given credence to earlier on when they talk about shared ritual and invocationary practices. Yes, this is a shared invocationary practice. We go further. A second change that took place in the Caribbean was that the divinities of different tribes became grouped together as slaves. We prefer to say enslaved Africans of different tribal backgrounds. We prefer to say nations were made to live and work together on the same plantation. This merging of the gods, so to speak, was facilitated by the fact that while many of the tribal divinities differed in names, they shared almost identical attributes and functions. Thus, the Ewe, Zevioso, was, for all practical purposes, identical with Shango of the Yorubas. Generally, the name of the god of the dominant tribal group survived. Thus, in northern Haiti, the Igbo, Congo, and Arada names for many West African divinities gave way to the Yoruba names. So basically, the tradition is basically the same. Whichever language was most populous at a moment in time became dominant. But when you actually look into the traditions, that we have in the Caribbean, even if a particular language is dominant, oftentimes you'll find shared language domains. So you'll find in Vudan, in Haiti, you will find Yoruba terminology and you'll find Fon terminology. Among the Kumina practitioners, and we're going to go into Kumina in our final presentation, in Jamaica, and the indigenous spiritual traditions that are preserved by the so-called maroon, people in the Caribbean, you're going to find the conglomeration of a variety of expressions that are even linguistically you can trace to the Igbo or to the Chi or to the Fon or to the Yoruba, for example. You're going to find all of these words. So there is a natural cultural unity within African spiritual traditions that makes African spirituality a viable and valid concept. Okay, we go back to ancestral voices, because not only did we preserve our traditions in the Americas, we also evolved them. There are also differences, Brother Dalian Adolfo says, in the types of forces. There are those that are ancient in origin and have served communities from time immemorial, and those of recent origin. This is perhaps most evident in the diaspora, where under extreme conditions of oppression and subjugation, new forces were made manifest and added to the cosmological pantheon. In Haiti, for example, the new forces were referred to as Petro, spirits, and similar also found in Cuba and Brazil. Petro in Vodun tradition in Haiti is what you might describe as a nation, of lower, lower are divinities. We're going to go into this in the third presentation in our series, where we deal with ancestors and the forces of nature. Okay, so you have the Rada, which are considered to be the more ancient, divinities, and then you have the Petro, which are the quote unquote new, and then when you go into it a little bit more, some will say that the Rada are more benevolent, and the Petro are more malevolent, so to speak, or they have a more warlike temperament to them, which is informed by the context in which those spirits manifested themselves. Some readings you'll get that interpretation as well. Okay, and then, but that tradition is also replicated when you get Orisha in Cuba and Brazil in places like Bahia. He continues, an example being the force Agayu in the Santeria pantheon, an essence correlated with the power of the volcano, but absent in the original pantheon. So Agayu is not an Orisha in Ile-Ife, in Yorubaland, presumably because of the absence of volcanoes in this terrain. So the people, our ancestors, went to the Americas, or were taken to the Americas, were kidnapped and taken to the Americas, and developed understandings of divine forces based upon the nature that was around them. So this was a new manifestation of nature. It required a new divinity to give it expression. Agayu was the expression. We're going to wrap up now. Finally, why is all this important? This is a great African by the name of Asa Hilliard. And we're just going to close by giving purpose and direction to everything that we just gone through. And he says in a text called Chasing Gods Not Our Own, Africans have been asked to sit over the years as spectators in awe and wonder and in admiration of the ancient and modern cultures of other peoples. We have not been asked to follow the ancient African dictum, man, woman, know thyself. Were we truly to know ourselves, we would be able to use our own traditions and experiences as the basis of a creative problem-solving approach in today's world. To do otherwise is to become cultural schizophrenics, split personalities, trying vainly to view the world through the eyes of others who look upon us at the same time with amused pity and contempt while we chase gods that are not our own. What is he saying here? If we knew ourselves, we would be able to draw on the wellspring of our traditions, our own history, our own ontology, our own cosmology, our own axiology as the basis of a creative problem-solving approach in today's world. But we can't do that. Why? Because we're doing otherwise. And to do otherwise is to be a cultural schizophrenic, trying to view the world through the eyes of others. That means using somebody else's cosmology and ontology and axiology. And the people whose eyes we are looking at the world through look upon us with amused pity and contempt while we chase gods that are not our own. In other words, chasing the deification of their culture, their cosmology, their ontology, and their axiology. Many of those who view us thus have been partners in the design of an educational process that has withheld from us our birthright, a knowledge of ourselves. This is not an accident. And yes, he's about to quote the Bible, the Helios Biblis. The Bible says, "He who steals my purse steals trash, but he who steals my good name steals that which does not make him rich, but makes me poor indeed." Our cosmology, our axiology, our ontology has been stolen from us. And as a result, we have been made impoverished. But truth crushed to the ground will rise again. Truth is all potent with its silent power, if only whispered, but never heard aloud, but working secretly, almost unseen, except in some excommunicated book. Truth is like lightning with its errand done just before you hear the thunder. We are here to revive and restore the truth about African spirituality and culture so that it may inform us in every area of people activity, as our great and illustrious prophet Omowale Malcolm X is about to give expression to in the charter of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which is the organization that he was in the process of launching at the point at which he was assassinated, kings and queens, in the year 1965. He says, we assert that we Afro-Americans have the right, I'm going to say Africans, we assert that we Africans have the right to direct and control our lives, our history, and our future, rather than have our destinies determined by American racists or this European racists of all descriptions. We are determined to rediscover our true African culture, which was crushed and hidden for over 400 years in order to enslave us and keep us enslaved up to today. We Africans, enslaved, oppressed, and denied by a society that proclaims itself the citadel of democracy, are determined to rediscover our history, promote the talents that are suppressed by our racist enslavers, renew the culture that was crushed by a slave government, and thereby again become a free people. For Omowale Malcolm X, the restoration of African culture, the restoration of dignity and pride to African culture was a prerequisite to freedom and liberation. And with that, we close there and we pause until next week, where we will go into delving into the concepts of the Supreme Creator in African spiritual traditions. I hope you have gained something from that, family. And we're going to pause, and I'm going to share out the link for ones and ones to come true. Whilst I'm doing that, I just want to remind you, for all those who are asking me about whether I've got PayPal, check the link in the description. Check the link in the description, and you will find the PayPal. If you feel moved, do not feel obliged, but if you feel moved to contribute to my thing, then I welcome you to do so. Right, I'm going to share the link now for those who want to come through, ask questions and make contributions. Feel free to do so. What we've been doing, for anybody that came late, today's edition is simply about defining African spirituality. Yeah, so the series, yeah, by the way, the link is in the chat right now, so come through if you want to come through. The series will explore one, defining African spirituality, which we've done today. Two, concepts of the Supreme Creator next week, the 3rd of June. 3, ancestors and the forces of nature, which is on the 10th of June. And 4, ritual, the self and nationhood, which is on the 17th of June. All right, the link is in the description. If you have a question, a comment, anything, kings and queens, feel free to come true. It seems that the chat feature, on my other screen has frozen, so I haven't been seeing all your comments from quite a while ago. So big up to the super chats, them. Big up to Ultra Funky with the super chat. Big up to brother Natron Nehisi with the super chat. Also, I give thanks. Yeah, much appreciated, family. Yeah, man, we appreciate all them something there, you know. All love with the item I get I. Yeah, the link is in the chat, so feel free to come through. And with your comments, your questions, your challenges, it's all welcome, kings and queens. Yeah, it's all very, very, very welcome. Okay, right. Let me share this just to keep it aesthetically consistent. Okay. I'm gonna scroll the chat now to see if there are any questions. Let me see if there are any questions. You're Shakira. Okay, 1 second. As always, there's an argument going on in the chat. While I'm going through this, kings and queens, feel free to come through. The link is in the description. I will take the questions from the chat, but it's always better to hear ones and ones voices. You know what I'm saying, and facilitate a conversation. Yeah. So feel free to come through, and we'll make it happen. All right. Right. We've got somebody coming through right about now. The Focus. I've seen your question. I've got Royal. My sister, please mute your. Thank you very much. I think you done so already. Greetings, Royal Lioness.
Greetings,
my sister. Greetings. Welcome to Shakira Speaks and Kimoyo, Why I Choose African Spirituality series. What's your contribution?
Well, right now I actually was doing something and I turned, so I'm sort of at the beginning level. I'm a learner here.
Okay.
Yeah. So learning to retrace my roots and make that connection, making sense of what is naturally here and learning to understand.
All right. Where are you? Where are you situated?
Okay, I'm in the U.S. I'm in South Carolina.
Beautiful. Ah, so wait, no, in the Carolinas, that's where they got the Gula and the Geechee.
Yes.
People.
Yes.
Okay. And are you from among the Gula and the Geechee?
Well, when we did the quote unquote scientific trace, no. But where I'm situated, location wise, they're about 2 hours away.
Okay. I'm sensing an accent though, other than American.
No. I've lived abroad for many years.
Okay.
So that's what you're hearing.
Okay, that's cool. Did you have a question or a contribution to make?
Yeah, I actually had a question. So I guess being a beginner on this journey, what would you suggest aside from like the book that you suggested in the series you suggested, Ancestral Voices? I felt like that was a good beginning point.
Yes.
So I guess as far as just daily meditations and how to make that connection stronger when the ancestors are there peeking from the veil, because what I'm finding is that there's lots of things going on in my life, and as I start to learn more about African spirituality, it makes sense, and understanding the struggle helps navigate through this world.
Yes, my
yeah
So, go. Finish. Conclude.
Yes. So trying to connect with the spiritual family per se.
A spiritual family. Okay.
Yes.
Now you're in a privileged position, my sister, because you are 2 hours from a community of people, that are very, very strong in their retention of African spiritual traditions, proud of it, and have scholars among them who are actually able to trace that lineage, with the benefit of hindsight and studies in African spiritual traditions, So I would strongly suggest acquainting yourself with the Gula community where you are in terms of finding a spiritual family. Yeah. Obviously,
Okay.
I don't know much about is it? Did you say North Carolina?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Sorry, yeah. So I
Yes.
couldn't give you that specific advice where that is concerned, but maybe those brothers and sisters could give you specific advice if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
But I understand the need for a spiritual family. So I do appreciate this question. In the 4th edition in this series on the 17th of June, I'm actually going to be going specifically into rituals and the self. Yeah. So so stay tuned for that, because that's what I'm going to go into a little bit more deeper. But I will say from now, there is a video online called Rituals for Living. Yeah, it's done by Ancestral Voices, the same people that I was referring to before, and they list a number of daily rituals that one can do. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, that will help one to connect with the self, spiritually speaking. Oftentimes when one's asked this question, the first thing people would say is, 1, meditation. Yeah, in terms of understanding, you know, your own thoughts and these kinds of things. But 2, ancestors. Yeah, get in touch with your own personal lineage ancestors. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying, learn about your grandparents, your great grandparents, you know, their stories. If you've got images and you want to begin to create an altar in your home, put images of your ancestors on the altar, and connect with their stories and their histories, because ancestorhood and ancestorship is quite a fundamental aspect of African spiritual traditions, because we're all born of our ancestors, and quite literally we carry their physical makeup in our bodies. Yeah, we carry their physicality in our bodies. Yeah. So again, Ancestral Voices, connecting with the Gula community, and connecting with one's own personal lineage ancestors is one way to go. When you say connecting with the struggle, delve into that a little piece more.
Connecting with the struggle personally, as far as everything that's happening in the world as well. All the things that happen to us as a people. Right. And I'm very conscious of the fact that being subjected to the oppressor, whether it be here, whether it be the UK, because I used to live abroad, it's the same thing. So I'm actually doing a book study with a couple of conscious people now, on Francis Cress Welsing. Beautiful. Yeah, so that whole concept is just, I don't know if it's because maybe now I'm reading the book, I'm becoming more conscious of it. I'm conscious of the fact that this has always existed. So I know that it's not just, okay, hey, it's just now started. Yes. So learning how to protect yourself from that type of energy, because I went to a point in time in my life where just spiritual energy was just drained, and I didn't understand why. So it started to cause physical problems. Right. So understanding more how to protect myself from that energy, because the type of work that I do, I'm constantly exposed to that type of negative energy. Okay. So understanding that I have to be able to go back, recenter, and protect myself from that type of energy. Definitely.
No, I totally understand. Now, on that point, one of the things that, from an African spiritualist perspective, especially when it relates to the movement and the quote unquote struggle, there's two dimensions of ancestors. Yeah. One is the personal ancestors, and the other is the collective ancestors, the community of ancestors. And so from a Pan-African perspective, we venerate our African liberation ancestors. Yeah. So in ceremony now, if we're pouring libation, which is the ritual done to evoke the spirit of the ancestors or to honor the ancestors, it's literally you take a substance, usually water, if it's your personal thing, and you just pour the water into a plant or onto the ground whilst calling the names of ancestors. And so in that respect, now what we're doing is we're connecting with that warrior energy of our ancestors. And when in my own personal ritual, what I would do is connect with a characteristic of the ancestor, and within the consciousness. Because, so how I was taught growing up in the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist movement is that we don't just honor our ancestors in terms of dates and times. We honor their characters. It's about their characters, because they did great things. But all of the great things they did was built upon their personalities, the character that they had in this realm of existence. And so invocation of ancestors is one element of that, is to imbibe their character in order to achieve what we are called to achieve in our own life. Yeah, and I hope that makes sense. So if I say Omowale Malcolm X, I'm invoking the capacity of the, what's the word, supreme sincerity. This is a supremely sincere individual. Yeah.
Okay.
He never shied away from the truth about himself and the truth of his people. This was a man of supreme intellect and integrity. Yeah, so when I invoke Omowale Malcolm X, I'm invoking the characteristics of integrity and articulation and sharpness of mind. When if I invoke Papa Marcus Mosiah Garvey, I'm invoking the spirit of the visionary spirit. This was a supreme visionary who looked around and saw the condition of his people and said, well, we're better than this, and gave us a vision and achieved monumental feats in terms of achieving that vision. If I look at Queen Ya Santewa, this was a woman who was fearless in the face of almost certain defeat at the hands of people who had superior weaponry. So I'm invoking that sense of bravery, that sense of nationhood and self-defense and all these things. And so in terms of connecting spiritually with our plight, that's also one way to do it. And today I also began by giving honor to the spirits of those who had passed recently in police brutality and racist attacks and these kinds of things as well. And so it's about the spiritually centering, because we can get caught up in the panic and the fear. Yeah. And what ritual does is it just allows us to take a moment to recenter and channel, you know what I'm saying, our energy to something more productive. Yeah. So you can complete that ritual with an affirmation of a productive act, how you're going to channel this energy of frustration and anger into something productive, and then perform whatever you have affirmed, if that makes sense.
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
I hope that answers your questions, my sister.
Yes, it does. And last question. So I know you probably said this already, but I was kind of doing some things around the house when you first began. Mm-hmm. Where can I find the dates that your series will be on? Because I know you mentioned the dates, and I was trying to jot them down. I said maybe they exist somewhere. Is it in the link? Or,
but you know what? So what I neglected to do was put the links to my social media. You can find me on all the social media. So Shakara Speaks, on all social media, Okay. Shakara, and then the Speaks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Mendede. Yeah. So that's find me, and it's all there, my sister. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you find out about this presentation?
Honestly, I was doing some other research, and I came across your live stream, and I said, wait, this is exactly what I'm looking at.
Okay.
So, and you were like in the middle. So
okay.
I said, okay, let me just, stay here, because this is what I was looking for.
The spirit moves, my sister. The spirit.
Yes,
moves.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Feel free to stay where you are. Or you can leave if you wish. That's fine. I'm just gonna put the call out once again. And now that you've prompted this, I'm gonna also correct what I didn't do and put my social media links in the description to the video. So thank you for that prompt right there. Let me share the link one more time. Anybody else who wants to come through, share an opinion, ask a question, feel free to do so. We're international right now, Kings and Queens. We got South Carolina. I feel kind of blessed, sis, because where you are is on my list of places to visit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I really want to reach. But did you say that you've lived in the UK?
I lived in the UK. I've lived in Ghana. I've lived in St. Lucia.
Wow.
So having lived in all of those places, I'm just now recently at a point where I'm able to sort of connect those dots for myself personally, because I really didn't understand at the time I was going through the experiences of what it was that was going on with me spiritually.
Right.
So now, once you start to understand that and you start to do your due diligence and research. So like I said, one of the reasons why I picked up the writings of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because I was very interested in the idea of how she explains white supremacy on a global scale.
Yes,
because speaking to people, sometimes they think, oh, it just happens here in this pocket, you know, or oh, it's happened here. So me having the opportunity to travel and actually see ancestors, you know, from the continent and abroad, it was just so enlightening. And by, I guess, career craft, if you will, I'm a teacher. So also understanding how to bring that to the younger generation.
Okay.
But in order to do that, I have to be able to do this myself and then be able to share. So like you said, there is a community here, I know, in South Carolina, which is so crazy because when I was young, I used to spend time here. I'm originally born in New Jersey and New York, and we would come here for the summer. And I would always complain because I was like, you know, it's so this, that, and everything else. And I wanted to be in a city. And then when I got older, I missed that. And then I understood why. So there's even a community here, maybe about an hour or so. I think the town is called Seabrook.
Right.
And there is a community there. I believe the person there, Nigerian. There's a community there. I know they have, you know, I forget which day it is. I think it might be a Wednesday or what have you, where, you know, they close up the community. They only speak in Igbo. They go through the traditional ceremonies for the young men and the young women. So those type of things, I find that it's just weird, not weird, but like you said, I understand that something is happening in my life and I'm here for a reason. Yes. So I'm trying to figure that out.
But you know what? It seems like the ancestors have put you in the perfect place.
Yes.
For all the answers that you actually need, they're right around you. And that is a blessing, because I know from experience that not everybody, you know, is blessed with that kind of abundance in their immediate circumstance when they're beginning on a journey. Do you know what I'm saying? So consider yourself privileged, at least in that respect. You know, trust me, because I know, you know, saying that it can be difficult. Even being in London, a lot of people cannot find spiritual communities, and sometimes it's because they exist, but they're not necessarily visible. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, you know, where you were there, you know exactly where to find them. You know what I'm saying? That is beautiful. You know, so yeah, I love that. I love that. And stay tuned, because after this, I'm going to be planning I teach in independent African institutions like Saturday schools and so on, and homeschooling. So I'm going to be doing a series on African-centered education.
Awesome.
After this, at some point in July, maybe. Well, maybe not July, actually, maybe September, because I might do a Marcus Garvey series in July, leading up to August, his birth month. So
that would be awesome.
Yes.
Because some of the youth that I work with, these are the things that we're now trying to put together. So I have another sister that I work with, and this is actually what we're trying to do for the youth, especially with everything that's going on now. You know, as far as social distancing, blah, 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 blah. But really taking this time to recenter and get students to understand that, listen, there's this place that you go to called school, and that has been canceled. Okay, fine. So now we will get down to the real learning that we need.
Yes.
Because I'm a firm believer that everything that's going on right now with our youth is because they just don't have the grounding. They don't understand who they are. So that work is very important to me.
Most definitely, sis. I'm gonna answer the question in the chat. Yeah. So like I said, you can feel free to stay or go.
Sure.
It's up to you. Yeah. Let me just answer this question from Focus. Question: my issue with spirituality is its intangible, unquantifiable nature. People claim to be doing spirituality are just doing foolishness. How do we quantify and validate spirituality? So, as I said earlier, spirituality is a way of life, steeped in reverence to nature. I'm going to go into, in week 3 and 4, a more in-depth answer to your question. I don't know what you're defining as foolishness, but spirituality in the African-centered context is really about reinforcing our connection, our interrelatedness with nature and natural forces. And so when you say quantifiable, what is quantifiable is the social order, and then if you once you get into delve deeper into spiritual practices, you may find more quantifiable kind of elements, let's say, that's not the remit of my presentation today, so we're not going to get into that. The long and short of it, however, is that when we're talking about ontology, axiology, and cosmology, we are dealing with our understanding of ourselves and the cosmos, and that is abstract. It operates in the realm of consciousness, which is an abstraction. Yeah, but that abstraction is made manifest within social order, within how we relate to ourselves and each other, within how we relate to the nature and the cosmos and the universe around us. So, for example, what's quantifiable is that if you revere the river, then you don't pollute the river. If you revere the forest, then you don't chop down more trees than you plant. Yeah, and these are acts. If you revere the land, yeah, then you seek to preserve the fertility of the land, so that the land may serve the community in the best way possible. And these are practical cultural manifestations that have been born out of the African-centered ontology, cosmology, and axiology, and these things are quantifiable. Yeah. So again, if we reduce spirituality to ritual, we're missing the point. Yeah, and that's what most people tend to do. They tend to say, well, look at the ritual and then it's foolishness. Then they're not looking at the philosophy. And I am definitely going to be focusing on the philosophy during this series of presentations. Greetings, my brother, Orthodox Moore. It's an international occasion. We've gone from South Carolina to Washington State.
Yeah, bi-coastal in this piece.
Indeed.
Let's big up. Let me do how my sect does it right quick. First, I rise giving praises to the God of Ethiopia, as Marcus Garvey called him, and I give honors to Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and other ancestors who were very revolutionary in their thinking and pointing us back to the continent and back to where we come from and whatnot, unapologetically and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate. I'm very grateful that I get to go back on a 2-hour show right quick and get like a scholarly breakdown on African spirituality, because I came in where you were unifying the thing right quick to where everybody was practicing it. They had their own languages and whatnot, but they found out the principles were interchangeable and whatnot. Right, like that was woo. That that was a good way to start my day right there. I like that. I'm looking forward to hearing that breakdown. But I got a specific question for something that's been intriguing me for a long time. Because in America, for people trying to reconnect for where they come from, one of the main things that I feel like we're missing as a people is the rites of passages that come from the different schools of thought or whatnot, from the people that we come from in Africa and whatnot. So is there any books you can recommend, or any sources of information you can recommend where I can go look into the specific different rites of passages for West Africa, et cetera, whatnot? Okay. Okay, so West Africa specifically. Now, if you're talking about rites of passage in terms of an initiatory kind of priestly order, yeah, the Handbook of Yoruba Religious Concepts is one, yeah. Okay. This book right here. He gives an explanation of the Yoruba initiation system, yeah. More outside of that, because rites of passage is not just a spiritual initiation, it's a life cycle. Yeah. In fact, exactly. At the beginning of the presentation, I actually showed an image from my own manhood initiation ceremony. Nice. And so one book, it's not necessarily from West African traditions, but the Kikuyu people in Kenya. Okay. There's a book called Facing Mount Kenya by Jomo Kenyatta, former president of Kenya. And he goes in on the rites of passage process among the Kikuyu people. It's excellent. And you'll find that in my studies of other rites of passage programs or processes, there's again, that's another place where there's significant unity, yeah, cultural unity among the rites of passage processes. Another book which is slightly different but similar is a book called Kindezi, The Congo Art of Babysitting by Kimbwadende Kiabunseki Fukiao. And it's about child rearing, yeah, in Kikongo, or what he calls Bantu societies, which that would relate to Central and West Africa. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so those are good to get started with. I'm trying to think of if there's anything more that deals with rites of passage specifically. In particular, do you know of anything that deals with some of like the the rites of passages for like the teenagers and whatnot, like for like when the women are coming into womanhood.
Yeah. So the book that I mentioned, Facing My Kenya, he does that specifically.
Okay, nice.
So he goes in depth in terms of how the boys are socialized, how the girls are socialized, how the boys are socialized with the girls. Very explicit detail. Yeah. In that book, it's an excellent book for that resource, for that reason. In terms of the you know what I'm saying, but he goes into an explanation of Kikuyu culture in general, so their understanding of land, their relationship to land, their political order, their social order, and in that context, he goes in on the rites of passage, and yeah, a lot of Afrocentrists, so to speak, in the 1980s got a lot of their understandings from that book. That was their beginning. Understanding that processes. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Now I know Mama Marimba Ani has done work on it, but I think that's more in presentation form than book form. There is a video where she visited London in the early 90s. She actually did a presentation on rites of passage, but I'm not sure. I don't believe it's online. I'm gonna double check for you right about now. But she goes in on a lot of the common features. Rites of passage. No, it's not there. Yeah. So I might actually try and correct that because I've got it on like VHS video somewhere. So I'm gonna try and digitize it and put it on YouTube. Right, it's a good one. But in that one as well, her daughter Jifa talks about her own rites of passage and initiation process into womanhood. So yeah, that is a beautiful process.
Yeah, give thanks for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
And real quick, I appreciate what you're doing on many levels. I have the highest respect for your scholarship and what you present and how you present it and what you're doing, man. So I look forward to this whole series, man. Like
give facts.
Look real forward to it. So I appreciate you, man.
Give facts, King. Give facts. I do appreciate the love and the appreciation and the questions and the conversation still, you know. So like, as I said to Sister Royal Lioness, feel free to stay where you are or leave if you need to. I'm going to put the call out again. Anybody who wants to come join, ask a question. I know that my queen's in the room right now. I know that she want me to remind you of the PayPal link in the chat at the minute. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I do recall people asking me a couple times, and my brother M.A. Brown was kind of getting at me to basically, you know what I'm saying, put a PayPal link in the chat. So I've done that this time. If you feel so moved to contribute to the work that I'm doing, feel free to do so. If there are any more questions, feel free to type them in the chat or come live, yeah? And I think, I didn't even post it. 1 second, I'm going to post the link one more time. Join. Yep. There we go. So if you got a question, a comment, you want to come through, feel free to do so. And yeah, shout out to everyone that joined me on Content Over Everything. Big up Content Over Everything, because I was dropping this presentation on content, and I thought it was good based upon the feedback. It was a good idea to break it down so I can go slower, because I kind of zing through it on content. You know what I'm saying? Zing through like 80 something slides. In the space of a couple of hours. So we're slowing it down. And greetings to Brother Witness.
Ekuroleo, Shala,
Ekurole, Edupe.
I just needed to check with you. When are the African spiritualists gonna be like alphas and start standing up for their thing publicly and informing people what they're about? Too many people are firing shots at them and they're behaving like pacifists.
You know what it is, bro? I hear you, and this is actually a part of the process. I think that teaching about the tradition is a part of the process. At the same time, there are certain things that are not dominant features of African spiritual traditions, like proselytization and conversion is not a dominant feature of African spiritual traditions. You know what I'm saying? And in fact, there's a brother from Malawi, his name I'm forgetting at the minute, but he's got a book where he talks about how it was common in ancient African societies for people to go from community to community and initiate themselves into the wisdom tradition or the spiritual tradition of other communities. Yeah. The brother that I mentioned earlier, Kimbwadende Kiabon Seki Fukiao, he was initiated into 3 different Kikongo spiritual systems, and then went and got initiated into the isiZulu spiritual system under the tutelage of Baba Vusama Zulu Credo Mutwa, who is a Sangoma in South Africa. And so I think it's all of those reasons why. At the same time, there's been a significant level of demonization of African spirituality, and we are but 100 and something years out of enslavement and colonization. In fact, less if you speak about colonization. And so really a lot of people are just beginning to rear their head again and affirm with rigor and boldness African spirituality and its dignity and pride. And so I think it's happening. So you will see more quote unquote alpha representations of the tradition as the years roll by.
I look forward to it so people can learn more. That's all basically. I just wanted to ask. Take care and speak to you soon.
Give thanks. Witness with that interesting question right there. Having said that, though, family, I do wanna make the point. In the fourth edition in the series. All right, my son. In the fourth edition of the series, we'll take it. In the fourth edition in the series, I will be looking into how African spiritual systems were used as resistance, in the Americas and on the continent. You know what I'm saying? So like, bear in mind that one of the reasons why African spirituality was so heavily demonized is because of the fact that that it was used to fight the enslaver. We must remember that. That it was considered to be a dangerous weapon in the hands of the African against the enslaver. 1 second. It says, Orthodox More, you got a comment in the chat for yourself. Big up to yourself, Akanfo Yawu. Respect and thank you for joining us. That's right, Nature. We don't deal with the sellouts around here. We don't venerate the sellouts. Greetings, Joel. Greetings, Shiva. I don't know how you pronounce the rest of that, but give thanks for the. What else is there? Kings and Queens, the link is in the chat. All social media is now in the description. So if you want to stay in tune with the works of Shakara and this series, the Kimoyo Why I Choose African Spirituality series, feel free to follow me on any of the social media and stay in tune. And also, if you want to contribute financially to the works, all the presentations are free, and they'll be here following their conclusions, so for playbacks and all kind of different things. But if you do feel moved to contribute for whatever reason, feel free to do so via the PayPal link in the chat. I'm gonna post the link one more time, and if nobody else comes through, we're gonna wrap up the session for today. Reminding you that next week probably gonna be my favorite week. Actually, the last week might be my favorite week. But we're gonna be delving into concepts of the Creator. Sorry about that, family. My son's fidgeting with the mic equipment. All right. We're going to be delving into concepts of the Creator. Concepts of the Creator next week. So I'm going to go in. I'm looking at, because we have to understand there is a distinction between how God is conceived within African consciousness and within, let's say, non-African consciousness. It's not the same thing. All right. You have to bear that in mind. So we're going to delve deeper into that. The link is in the chat once again, family. So if you've got a question, a comment, I was about to say that nobody from the UK has come through yet, but Witness just did. You know what I'm saying? Anybody on in the motherland, I'd love to hear your voice. You know what I'm saying? If you're locked on right about now, I do give thanks. And we look forward to you joining us throughout the series. It's a very, very important work. And as I said at the beginning, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because more often than not, we have not approached African spirituality from an understanding of the philosophy, the principles and values that underpin it. And so that's what we're trying to do with this series. And I hope ones and ones appreciate that. More, did you have something to say a minute ago?
Yeah, I just want to say big up man like Witness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, you know, Witness is a good brother. Witness always comes with them pertinent questions. You know what I mean? With their pertinent questions. But having said that, I do want to say that the brothers and sisters at Ancestral Voices are going to be coming with more campaigns, yeah, in terms of demanding respect for African spiritual systems. I also want to big up my sister Na Jele Bojo, who is a sister from the Ga people who currently reside in Ghana, and she is a traditionalist who's, you know, an archivist, basically archiving the traditions of her people in a number of different ways. And so, you know, there's soft power and there's hard power, as they say, but some would say what they call soft power, which is culture, is actually the hardest kind of power. Yes, I know, yes. National racialism.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I'm good.
Yes. Great presentation.
Thank you,
and I think you're raising some very excuse me, choked some food. Right, okay. Now, I understand the value of knowing the original African spirituality. And I think you made a beautiful point in saying that all religion is a product of culture. I fully agree with that.
Yes, sir.
You know, religion is downstream from the foundation of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture is religion is just a higher form of culture. Culture, when it becomes mature and refined, it then becomes a religion of the people, because it's a preservation of the values and the knowledge in a codified form that enables the people to continue to live and prosper.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the question. Would you agree that the original culture and religion has been so distorted by European banking influence that a new culture must be formed, which will then result in a new kind of religion that is something of the old, but has in it the antidote to the poison of the culture and religion that damaged it. Does that make sense?
Yes. The essence of your point, I'd agree with. I would advise the use of the word new and put in its place evolution. But I definitely would agree with you. And I think that those who are on the African spiritualist path are certainly, doing that work. Yeah, the African cultural nationalist path as well. Sorry, are doing that work. Yeah, it's about culture as a revolutionary tool. Yeah, it's about culture with the added lessons of culture. Is always evolves with the experiences of the people. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's an organic experience. But if culture is self-conceiving and self-constructing, then it does that organically. It only doesn't when the people's ability to act and think in terms of their own culture has been retarded for whatever reason. And that's the problem that we're facing at the moment. Yeah. So yes, I would definitely agree that it's never about in any culture just going 500 years ago and picking up what our ancestors had and trying to. It's not even possible to try to implement it you know, in exactly the same way. Like, it's not even possible because the circumstances, the reality is different. Yeah. But it's about understanding the essential principles and the values. And it's also about establishing cultural continuity. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Within that, you know, so when we let go of something, we know exactly why we're letting go of it, and we're letting go of it from our own perspective rather than the perspective of those who have you know, imposed their worldview upon us. So I definitely harmonize with what you're saying, and that is the whole point of the series as well. And in the fourth session in this series, we're going to delve into that even more, what you just explained even more.
Excellent, because that's a highly charged point, because you mentioned letting go. Some people, they're gonna, you know, well, it's just like the movie, you know, that Wakanda movie. You know, did it take a Killmonger to come and try and get them to rethink?
Yeah.
Does it take a Killmonger to do that, or can it be done without a Killmonger kind of character that's going to shake up the whole place?
In Ifa cosmology, there's a concept called Elenini, yeah, and Elenini is a self-generated demon, so to speak. Yeah.
Say it again. Start again. Come again.
I see you're enjoying this. I see you're enjoying this one. What's it called? Yeah, the Elenini is a self-generated demon. Yeah. And it's basically the demon that is generated by your own consciousness through whatever issues you have failed to address or whatever wrongs you have failed to right. Yeah. And these kinds of things. Yeah. It's called Elenini. Yeah. And the antidote, and forgive me because I'm forgetting the term in Yoruba, but it translates as something like, in order to exercise oneself of an Elenini, you have to adopt the characteristics of the beneficent stranger or something like that. Yeah. In other words, you have to have the ability to look at the self from another perspective. Yeah.
All right, like a mirror.
In a sense, right?
Yeah, like the mirror, the mirror scene in the Matrix.
Right.
Ah.
Yes. Yeah. You could say that. Yeah. So and so in that respect, we have a lot of Elenini. Yeah. Collectively as a people, yeah,
right,
hovering around our consciousness. And so we have to, in order in the ancient Kemet, yeah, the story associated with Asa and Oset, in which Set, yeah, which represents disorder and chaos, the opposite of Ma'at, cut up the body of his brother Asa, and dispersed it, across the world. And it took for Asa's wife and her sister Nebhet, these feminine energies to go and bring the pieces of Asa together and restore life to Asa. And so the vision of Oset, and Nebhet had to be to see life where everybody else only saw death. And so
excellent.
And so our people have been scattered, across the world, and separated and degraded as in the process of that scattering. And so, in a sense, the beneficent stranger, there's an element of that within us wherever we have been scattered. There's a piece of that puzzle to bring together to restore life wherever we are. You know what I'm saying? That mirror, there's a piece of the mirror, you know what I'm saying, wherever we are.
Yes.
And when we bring those elements together, we get a complete mirror that we can look at ourselves in a collective way through, and go through that process of restoration properly from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that is a beautiful question that you've asked that has allowed for a beautiful exploration. So I give thanks for it.
Yes. Second question.
Yes, sir.
There seems to be two camps, I've noticed. There's one camp who believes that you have to get reparations first, and then you can run off with your reparations and go somewhere and then start to build. Oh no, sorry. There's 3 camps. There's one camp that believes you've got to get reparations first. Once you've got your bag and full of reparations, you think then go off to Africa and then build a new Africa.
Yes.
There's the other camp who believes, look, we're not going to get reparations. Let's just go off and build Africa with whatever money we can save up whilst working through this system and the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And then perhaps we can become strong enough to then go back and then get reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a third camp, which is my camp. I believe that the reparations and the building is all done in one move. It's like a cycle. Does that make sense? So, so a currency. If you look at water, if a currency is rising somewhere, it must be going down somewhere else.
Mm.
If it's going down somewhere, it must be rising. So they may, the enemies may be losing value and suffering problems in their markets, but they're not going to tell you who is benefiting. No, where is it going up? If they're losing, what is going up? Where is it going up? Who is benefiting? And when they're gaining, we have 10% growth, 3% growth, but who is suffering? Who's bearing that cost?
Mm.
So I see it like a seesaw. So those are the 3 angles. I can't think of any others. So which camp would you put yourself in?
What I will say is that the perspective of the international movement for reparations is the latter. Yeah, is that reparations is not an event; it's a process. Yeah, and so there is no waiting till we get reparations. That doesn't exist. Yeah, it's a process. And getting reparations is for some will even be considered a misnomer in the sense of the fact that reparations being a process is
that's right.
Of 2 factors, which is internal repair and external repair. Yeah, internal repair and external repair. Internal repair being what we need to repair for ourselves, and external repair being what we're demanding of others. Yeah, and further, the more revolutionary element of the reparation movement would suggest where there is no external repair unless there is a significant amount of internal repair. In other words, they're not going to give us anything. Anything that we're going to get, we're going to demand and receive from a position of power. Yeah,
right.
In that regard, and so in a sense, this presentation and this series is an act of self-repair. I heard yourself actually on the G block the other day when you was getting a long list of questioning, and you got to a point whereby you said that about the church, and the relationship between the church and the bank, and the church being the place whereby the principles and the values and the shared consciousness is developed that eventually evolves into a bank.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying, and so I harmonize with that analogy, that understanding of human and social development, and so in a sense, right now we're for want of a better, for using your analogy, should I say, we're restoring the values of the church at the minute, if that
good. Yes, good.
And so it's not even necessarily about everybody. This is not an exercise in conversion, it's an exercise in understanding.
Yes.
And developing an understanding and restoring dignity too, and then assisting those who want to develop themselves along this path with the tools that they need to be able to do so. And I should have said this at the beginning, but I'm doing this from the perspective of a practitioner and a devotee and a student. I'm not a priest in any spiritual system. I am a devotee, and so I'm sharing what I know and understand from the perspective of an adherent and a devotee, and I hope ones and ones can see value in that also.
Okay, but you may become a priest unwittingly.
I understand what you mean.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Well, they say in this society that lawyers are a priest of the state. Judges and lawyers, they're priests.
Oh no. I'll tell you who the priests are.
Mm.
The priests are the actuaries.
Right.
Have you heard of an actuary?
I'm familiar with the terminology, but break it down for me.
Yeah, an actuary. That's ACTUARY. An actuary. So, when you're studying to be an accountant, it always comes back to the money. Obviously, it's very tough. Any accountant will tell you that the training exams and so on to be an accountant are very tough. But there's still a higher level than the accountant, and that's the actuary. The actuary is the one who does risks assessments. So for the insurance companies. So the accountant will check your books to make sure that they're following the standards and audit the books. But the actuary will actually tell the insurance companies and the big corporations the probability, the risks. See, so they're the priests of the casino, and it's heavy training. Just look up actuary. Anybody wants to look up actuary and listen on what it takes to be an actuary, because when you think about it, even those ships, they're going to Africa to collect slaves. They have to be insured.
Certainly.
You see?
So, one second, bro. Brother Ken, I can see you, but it's saying that your devices are not connected. So evidently, you need to turn on your mic and or your camera. So try drop off and come back again. I think you'll be the last one guest. Unless I receive anybody coming through within the next minute or two. Brother Ken, you'll be the last ones. But you might need to drop off and come back again, and just make sure you allow your mic and your camera to be read by the system. All right, go ahead. Sorry to cut you, brother.
Oh yes, yeah. So the actuary would be working out the Lloyd's was thinking about insuring the ships, correct? And all those stories we hear about slaves being thrown overboard, but they've been thrown overboard to collect on the money. See, but what's all that about? You see,
it's the risk assessment.
There you go. So you can see that those actuaries are more serious and more dangerous than anything else.
Right.
Because you could end up being thrown overboard at the ship. Your life is nothing. You know, from a commercial point of view, you know, stock, of course you're worth something. Of course. If you've got 10 slaves, if they make it to the other side, they're going to be sold. But how can you throw them in the water? So you can see that insurance is a very strange and very dangerous thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's moved from the ships
to
it's like if you're going to have insurance for your car or your house or your family, you give some detailed information about yourself and where you live and so on, and you get a quote. Is that correct? Right. But do you know that how much the person next door is paying for insurance? It might be the same insurance. We don't know, do you? You only ever know what insurance for you. So what if race is a factor in that? They're not going to tell you. How did you calculate my insurance?
I hear you, bro. I hear you.
Yeah, so I hope that inspires people to check out actuaries.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Give thanks for that information, my brother.
Yeah.
Much appreciated as always. Kings and Queens, we're gonna wrap up here in the next 5, innit? We're gonna wrap up in the next 5. So if you've got a question or a comment, you have to come through no. The link is in the chat. In relation to that, whilst we're waiting for that, I'm just gonna check if Brother Moore and Sister Royal Lioness has anything that you want to say before we close off the show.
Well, brother, I'm good for now. I'm so grateful for these series, and thank you so much for sharing.
Blessings, my sister. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing an update on your journey.
Certainly.
Yes, sister. Give thanks.
Yeah, as always, I'm very appreciative for the information, because I know you source your information very well and whatnot. So I look forward to going back over this presentation and whatnot. I definitely look forward to that presentation next week. You know what I'm saying, on the concept.
Yes.
God and whatnot. Yeah, that's gonna be fantastic to watch. So I appreciate you putting all the information together and doing these presentations for the people, man.
I appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. Keep up.
I
like the color theme of black, white, and orange.
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
That orange is a highly charged color, you know.
Yes.
To do with ING and the Barings Bank.
No.
Yeah, or Barings Bank built itself up over slavery, basically.
Okay.
And then when they crashed, the ING, a Dutch, and that's their colors. They bought them.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I see the orange, I'm just thinking about that. Yeah, brilliant. Right. Nice work.
Give facts, bro. Yeah, feel free to let yourself go, brothers. I'm gonna wrap up the show now. As we move. Okay. Right. So I've got to do an extension now because my brother Abiola is in the house. And we just got to give him time. Before I do that, Royal Lioness, you came back. Right, so Royal Lioness?
Yeah.
You just got to give him time. Oh, you're on mute now. Before I do that, Royal Lioness, brother Abiola, mute the
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
Okay, no, I was saying yes, I'm here. I'm so glued. I just was pressing buttons and logged out and then had to log back in.
Okay. That's fine. Well, you stay with your my brother from France has jumped in, so I'm gonna give him some. I'm doing an extension now because when brother Abiola comes through, I just got to make. He's got to have all the time that he wants. So, brother Abiola. You're on mute, my brother, if you're trying to speak. Brother,
greetings.
Greetings, bro. Greetings. How you doing?
Greetings.
Okay. So I think the sister was talking.
No. You're talking now. It's your time. But
okay.
Can you hear my voice through the StreamYard, or are you listening to me via the YouTube?
Yeah, I think I had the YouTube screen also on, so now it's better, I think.
Good. Yes, sir. Okay. So what's your contribution?
Yeah, greetings, brother. Thanks for doing this series.
Yes,
greetings to all the brothers and sisters who are on the channel right now. So I really appreciated the contributions, the question, and actually there was one brother who was asking about the alpha strategy for having the African spirituality being taken seriously again.
Yes.
So I think it's a very interesting question.
Yes.
Because as you said, traditionally there is no emphasis on converting any other people.
Yes.
Because it's not the way it's being done.
Mm-hmm.
There is no purpose or about converting someone else to pay respect to your ancestors. It doesn't make sense. You see? But as you've said, also we need to evolve because the conditions are not the same as they were before.
Yes.
And today in this environment, we can see that other religions or groups are very organized about proselytizing, and their main focus actually is gaining more people. That's the whole thing. You go to the church, you go to the mosque, and even if you have never read the Bible, you are qualified to get more converts. You see, you just have to go out there and say, yeah, I've been touched by Jesus, by Mahomet, anything, but you are already entitled to get more people. When you see the way it's being done in the African spirituality right now, it's more gatekeep. People have to go to initiations. It's very close, actually, in the way it's working for the beginners, from people who are not very knowledgeable about that spirituality. And I think we have to think about it to find ways to make it more approachable for people who are not familiar about it. Because today, I was remembering a book that Cheikh Anta Diop wrote, I think in the 50s, something like that. I know the title in French. I don't know how to translate it in English. The title is Alert in the Tropics, something like that.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure it has been translated in English, but it's Alerting on the Tropics. And in this book, it's a very short book. He said that the African religion is the dominant religion. So he was speaking at his time in the 50s. He was saying that the African religion is the dominant religion today. 80% of Africans are practicing their traditional religion. But we can see that the other religions are gaining power quicker. So in order to protect the African culture, we need the government to do something to equip African religion to resist, basically. He was not talking about attacking the other religions, but equipping the African religion to be self-sustaining and not to wither away. And we can see that in the 50s, it was still the dominant religion, the dominant spirituality. Now the situation is completely reversed. I don't know the numbers, but it may be 20%, it may be 15%, maybe 10% of the African population that is still following the African spirituality. So there need to be a strategy to get more people involved in it, to get people being able to get convert, basically. And I think this is a very important topic, because if you go to Amazon.com right now and you look up, you search church planting, you will see like dozens of books about how to create a church, about how to attract people in your church, and how to make those people disciples that create disciples. That is crazy. It's about creating disciples that will multiply the number of disciples. So it's a viral thing. And they have books, they have training, they have methods. And today, I think we need to start working on that level also, how to make it more approachable without betraying the essence of the spirituality. But we have to find ways to grow. That's I think very, very important. So shout out to the brother that brought up that point.
Yes, sir. Give thanks for that, bro. You know, whilst you're here, it's only right that I give you the opportunity to let people know about Nation Kamit, who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you, brother. So I am a member of an organization that's called Nation Kamit. We have members in France and in the Congo, and it's an Afrocentric organization. So the name Nation is about building a nation, an African nation, with our African brothers and sisters from all over the world. And the name Kemet come from Kemet, which is the ancient Egypt, which was African, of course, and which is the basis of our highest point in civilization. So that's the foundation for this name. And the term nation is very important for us because we think that what Marcus Garvey was saying is still true until there is a great superstate, a great powerful African state in this world. All African all over the world will keep suffering because power determines everything in this world. And we can see the example of the Chinese people. Not so long ago, people were mocking the Chinese. Not so long ago. And in the United States, they brought a lot of Chinese people to build the railways in the 19th century. And those memories are still vivid. But today, China is very respected, and nobody can go on the street. Even if you're a policeman, you cannot go on the street and kill a Chinese person for no reason. Because if you do that, there will be a reaction. And the reaction will be powerful. So that is why today the Chinese people are respected. Nobody touched them. But today you can be a Jamaican, you can be a person from Mali, you can be a person from Congo. If something happens to you, I'm not sure that your state will go and defend you. And that is the key to get back to power. We need that state. So that is why we have put the nation in our name. So today we are working on what Marcus Garvey, Cheikh Anta Diop, Kwame Nkrumah had outlined as the plan, that is to create this state. It's a very far-fetched plan, and so people think it will be impossible. But I just want people to remember that China has been colonized also by France, Britain, the USA, Russia. Everybody was in China just a century ago. They are calling that the century of humiliation. So they were very, very low on the rank of the nations, but they managed to get back to power. So it is possible. We just have to believe in it and study and work. So that is what we are doing. It takes a lot of time, but I think we are not alone. We have Brother Shakara, we have Al-Kebulan Revivalist Movement. There are a lot of organizations that are working on this problem. And the only thing that I can say is for the brothers and sisters who are not in an organization right now, it's the most important thing is to find an organization that you like and join them. They won't be perfect, but if they are not perfect, you will have a lot of ways to bring some improvement to the organization. But you can be a lone cowboy trying to save the world, or you can stay on your house doing nothing. So you have to work together. It's not like it's not tennis. It's not a one-person sport. It's a collective sport, and it's more like football. And you can be one person against a team of 11. You will lose every time. So we have to get together and work as teams. So that was my message.
Okay, can I make a point?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Yes. Brother Abiola. You were talking about these churches and how they are bringing in lots of people and stuff like this, and the majority of people see that quantity is power. Quantity is power, but it can't touch quality. So you mentioned that some of the African traditional religions that the initiation is very strict, and so therefore it's not very popular. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So there seems to be two roads here. Some would say, look, we've got to get the numbers up, whilst others are saying, look, it's not about numbers, it's about getting that initial core, getting the quality of the initial core, whether or not the numbers are large or small. Because when you talk about finance, bring it back to money again, everybody seems to agree that it's always the 1% or the 1% of the 1% that is running the whole show. So that 1% of the 1%, that very small group of people that seem to be running the whole show, they must have some quality, very high quality principles that keeps them together. They're not interested in quantity. Just a small number. I mean, the British were running the whole of India with just a few people. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You see, so therefore it must be about, in my view, it must be about systems. All you need is a small number of people with a very tight system, and they just keep their mouth shut. And you know, it's like running a farm, isn't it? You could have thousands of herds of cattle, but they're just cattle. They're just cattle. They don't know what's going on. But the person who's managing the farm knows. It's running a zoo. How many people does it take to run a zoo? And look how many animals there are. Look at the variety of animals. Just a very few. So I'm just saying that, and when you look at war as well, sometimes I look at some of the ancient wars, and you have the two armies lined up against each other, and sometimes one army is much larger than the other army, and you think, what's going on? How can you got 10,000, you're going up against 100,000? Yet some of this small groups. Look at Hannibal. It's amazing some of the things he was doing. Just a small. So obviously he was not thinking about numbers. He's just thinking. Obviously he wants to try and increase the army, but he was winning with just small numbers, and therefore he was studying the environment. So whilst we're watching the people, we're not actually watching. You know, whilst watching the numbers, they say, oh, there's thousands of people joining this, and there's thousands of people are joining over here. But you're just looking at the numbers. You got to look at the layout of the land. You got to watch the layout of the land, because sometimes those numbers could mean a disadvantage. And
everyone's coming late. All right, Brad, I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes. I was trying to wrap up the thing. Go and finish your point. I see.
Yeah. So I'm going to finish my point now. So if you look at some of the Alexander the Great, it's serious because these words took Egypt, but he was young, and his father set him with a small group over to the left-hand side. You read it yourself, and his father took on the main battle, and he left it to his son when to come in. So his son's there just watching. He's looking at his dad fighting. But the young Alexander knew that as soon as the enemy, which is much larger, broke rank, and there was a gap opened up, whoosh, he was straight in there, and he went round the back. He went through the middle, through the gap that opened up, disorder, you see, amongst the enemy, through the gap, and he went round the back and they just wiped out the whole lot, because people start once the disorder comes in, people lose the morale. The enemy loses the morale. Yeah, and once they get scared, because once they're not expecting something, the whole thing collapses. And that's it. That's the point I was making.
Your fans IC3. Brad, go on. You come late though, bro. I'm trying.
My bad, bro. I was like driving out and stuff like that, man. No, I was thinking about the topic defining African spirituality, and I have to be real, bro. I really think. Oh, by the way, I love how when you go on YouTube, right under your video, up next is that it's called "The Birthplace of Voodoo" by National Geographic. So you know you starting something here, bro. But
okay. See, I'm gonna check that out. Go on.
Yeah. One thing I'm looking at, and I posed this to a couple of my friends at Temple this past weekend, and I don't think we should impose. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm imposing something on the motherland in any way, shape, or form, but I really believe we have to have some form of an African version of the Nicene Council, because if we're going to push this thing, right, if we're going to be able to combat, Islam, Christianity, and these things, we're going to have to severely, we're gonna have to really come up with a book. Odus cannot be as Odus are so individual, they have so many different readings and so many different versions that it's just bro, I understand these are lessons for humanity, but it's we need a set group, you know what I mean? And the best part is if we modernize it, bring something in. When someone says, oh, what do you do when you hurt a child? Well, boom, here you go. You know what I mean? We shouldn't have to be able to say, well, back in that time, Shango didn't know that this, and you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I really think that in the future of our ancestral beliefs and our ancestral culture, we'll have to talk in some degree of modernizing it, but also consolidating it. I would say starting in a West Africans pulling, our systems together. And because you see that in the Caribbean, you know what I mean? You see that in the Americas, where it's certain deities, I saw that, I think it was in Haiti, where you see the utilization of Tano, which is the Akan god of war, which has the same essence of Ogun in regards to steel, fire, you know what I mean? I said iron and fire and things like that, and aspects of war, the game that's played with death and things like that. I say it's a game, but if you're a warrior of Tano, if Tano comes to you first on the battlefield, you will survive. If death comes to you, you will die. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I feel we could utilize and bring that together. How it's uplifting to women. Our women need that. They need to know. Our little girls need to know that there's a goddess that has 4C hair and has your nose, your lips, your face. You know what I mean? That the other god, the male Orishas or the male. I'm using gods because we're all speaking English. But, the male gods, could not survive without them. You know what I mean? And that's just I just feel that's just something, that I think we could push, you know what I mean, for the future.
Yeah, I agree with this, with the principle of the point that you're making. We discussed it before because Witness came on, came on and was asking us about an alpha manifestation of African spirituality. Brother Abiola, who's on the panel, addressed that as well. And I think the spirit of what you're saying is agreed upon. But I think this is all part of the process. You can't develop strength in something that we don't understand. And so the first stage is just understanding and teaching and all these.
Yeah, I would say start out small. I'll literally say, all right, we go from Sierra Leone to Cameroon, and we just get Babu Lawus out the wazoo, put them all in a Holiday Inn, and be listen, y'all put this thing together. Call us when you're done. You know what I mean? You bring the name. I mean, because we all primarily speak English. Especially in the Western world. I know there's some French speakers and things like that. But I really think because I am tired of hearing this people say that oh, my Bible has this and my Quran has that. But it's yeah, but your prophet did this and your Jesus did that. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's my 2 cents.
Can I make a response to
very quickly? The national recently
So I like what he's saying, the Council of Nicaea kind of thing, but I think it has to be. I think it's going to have to be a challenge of some kind, because somehow challenges allow people to retain their ego You know, if people just can't just give up what they're doing without a challenge. They've got to fight to feel at least they've given it their best shot.
Well, no, I like you just said about quantity. Like you just said about quantity, I would honestly like put it together and then just start pushing out pamphlets. I would say that the current devotees of the current practicing people who practice the various faiths, the various spiritual systems, should have this conversation before we release it. You know, of course, like me being, you know, having Yoruba descent on my father's side and Ashanti descent on my mother's side, you know, that XY is really blessing me, son of two empires. But, you know, like, I believe that, like, you know, my ego, of course, would be like, all right, I would want to see, you know, Ogun out there more than ever, you know what I mean? But, like, I do believe that, like, we would have to, like, if we're thinking about the survival of the overall thing, and I know Shakara wants to end this, I'm just going to say this real quickly. If we think about the survival of the overall thing, then, yeah, I think that egos, if someone comes with that ego, we need to, like, I would say leave it up to the elders, not to the youth. You know, you know, those who've been the thing 20 plus years, they should come together and put this idea. You know what I mean? I would leave this to, like, this should be the elders' like major gift to the next generation. You know.
Interesting. Yeah. Family, we're gonna wrap up there. Yeah.
Okay. So brilliant show. Excellent.
Give thanks for coming through. Yeah. And love to you, Sister Royal Lioness. I do appreciate your energy. Much appreciated. Right. Everyone, Brother Abiola, when you're ready, and also everybody that's on the panel, feel free to let yourself go while I just close up. It's a value.
Okay, good night, all.
Give thanks.
Hey, blessings to everybody. Black power to all.
Black power.
Black people. Yeah.
Black power.
Thank you.
Abibi to me, Kem Shekem, and all these things. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the show. So yeah. But just a quick word to what's his name in the chat. Let me get that name correct. Comments. Funky Soul. I did mention George Floyd at the beginning of the show. Everyone's talking about coronavirus. I won't be talking about coronavirus in this particular series, but there will be many opportunities for us to talk about coronavirus at other times, as well as police brutality. But I did touch on the killing of our brother George Floyd earlier in the show. And yeah, it's very important, however, that we remain proactive and not reactive. Yeah, oftentimes, you know, we have to know how to stay on our mission, whilst the forces of this society are trying to aggress us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when something happens to other people, they don't stop all of their activities to concentrate on one thing. And we have to develop that sensibility, because that's how they keep us in a state of panic and a state of fear. Yeah. And so I continue to do this series in spite of what is going on, because we must continue to build whilst we are also addressing these injustices, you know, that are taking place around us. And I hope ones appreciate and understand that we must be proactive even in our responses to injustices. But no doubt we will continue to address the situation of these injustices, and our brother George Floyd and the others who have been killed in police brutality and racist attacks. I want to give thanks, to everybody who has joined in, who has contributed by way of Super Chat or PayPal, and even those who didn't contribute nothing. The series is free and it will always remain free. It's just an option there for those who want to use it. Next week, we will be dealing with who or what is God. Yeah, who or what is God. And we're going to go in on concepts of the Creator, touching on something that Brother Brad just said a minute ago. And we're going to be going in on the feminine aspect of the Creator as well. We're going to be looking at how the Supreme Creator manifests in the feminine principle as one of those aspects. Then we're going to be dealing with the week after that, the 10th of June, we're going to be dealing with ancestors and the forces of nature. Ancestors and the forces of nature, where we begin to look at how we're going to lay a foundation for understanding African-centered ritual and harmony with nature, or nature-based spiritual conceptions. Yeah, and then we have finally on the 17th of June, ritual, the self, and nature. That particular that particular presentation, I'm going to be delving more into nowadays practical and futuristic applications for African spiritual consciousness as it relates to the self as individuals and collectively, and ultimately the concept of nationhood. Yeah, so I do look forward to ones and ones sharing that time with I. Give thanks once again for all those who joined us. Yeah, man, we look forward to continuing to build upon this road. To close, Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the Most High, Mother, Father, Creator of the universe. Kozai Muzimu Mukulu, give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, in the Tree language, means black power. Kem Shekem means the same in the ancient language of the Medjugorje. I will see you next week. Ashe.